All right, so this tutorial is for binding your rig to, or the skeleton to the mesh, okay? So there's going to be a variety of things here to do, but you should already have your blend shapes done at this point. You can see on this, it would be on, if this guy was attached, it'd be on the main thing. So what I want to do is this. If I hit 4, you can see my joints underneath, right? I'm going to go ahead and hit back to 6. I'm going to go up to shading, and I'm going to do X-ray joints. And what that's going to do is it actually keeps the joints in X-ray mode. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with, okay? Now, what we're going to do is, if you look, I have a bunch of joints that are all on top of each other. I have hips, override, and root are right here. If you remember, we duplicated those together last time. So what I don't want to do is actually have the root, because otherwise I have two joints occupying the same space trying to compete to control an area. I'd be better off actually, what I'm going to do is in order to select the root, if I try to click in here, I'm going to keep getting like probably the root, right? It's really hard. But if I click the bone of the joint, so like for instance, if I want to select this joint, I can click on it. But if I click here, it's like the same as selecting the joint, okay? So in order to get this hips over, I'm just going to click on the bone. Like either one of these sides will do it, okay? Then I'm going to hold shift, I'm going to select the first spine joint. All right, so basically I'm not going to bind that one, the root joint. I'm going to shift select the geometry. In my case, I got to do two things, okay? Do not bind the eyeballs, or if you have hair or anything that's not bending with it. The eyeballs move with the body, but they don't bend with the body, right? Same thing with hair. Hair kind of can, but that's a little bit different. So, but it should just be the main body, all right? If you got a character and they have like a belt or something, it's a separate piece, then yeah, probably you want to bind that. But because that bends with the body. But in this case, we're just going to grab that. Okay, so basically you select the joints you want, and then you select the geometry you want, and you go up to make sure you're on the rigging menu set. Also, I didn't mention this, I turned off joints before. I turned them back on, so make sure that's on if you don't see your joints. So I'm just going to go to skin, bind skin. I'm going to hit the option box, and we're going to go through this. So, crap, get back up here. Oh, that's not how big I wanted it. There we go. First off, I'm going to do joint hierarchy. What that means is that it's going to start from wherever joint I have selected and select all the joints underneath. The other options are selected joints or object hierarchy. So you can actually bind objects, kind of like muscles and stuff like that. But I'm going to go ahead and do joint hierarchy. If I did selected joints, it's only going to do these two joints, the only two I have selected. So we'll do joint hierarchy. Geodesic Voxel is the latest binding method that they've come out with. It used to be closest distance and closest in hierarchy. Which those work if you're in a pinch, because sometimes these other ones don't function the way you expect them to. Heat map's very nice, but Geodesic Voxel is super, super awesome. It's way better than things used to be. Choose classic linear. Basically, it's the way that these are interpolated when the joints bend, how they transition from one spot to another. The dual quaternion, it maintains better volume, but it's slower, and it's just kind of... Just do classic linear. It's cleaner. Go ahead and leave that as interactive. Just make sure it's not post. Weight distribution. You can do distance, or you can do neighbors. I honestly don't really know much of the difference. This is a new thing as of the Geodesic Voxel. We'll leave it... I'm going to leave it on distance. Make sure that's off. Max influences is 3. The reason why is that there are areas that... Actually, you know what? We'll even go 2. We'll do 2. What that means is that no vertice can have any more than 2 joints affecting it. 99% of the time, that's the way everything is, right? If I look at my elbow here, part of the upper arm is affecting it, and part of the lower arm is affecting it. But that's it. Like, my finger's not, right? I think the default usually is 5 here, but that's way more than what you need. Same thing with the knee, same thing with all the fingers. There's usually not multiple ones affecting it. The most you normally have is even 3. Now, you can have more than that. There's definitely, and if you're doing really great weight pinning, you would have more. But I'm going to do 2, and I'd rather add in influence as I need it. So I'm going to go 2. Make sure this is checked off. What this means is that it almost locks it so that you can't add more influence, which we do want. So don't have maintain influences. Remove unused influence. It just means that if there's an influence assigned to something that's not really doing much, it just will take it out altogether. It's like pruning it. Colorize skeleton, it just makes it so the skeleton is like rainbow bright. I really don't care about that. You can leave it on, it's completely aesthetic, it has no effect on it. Fall off is obviously the fall off of the influence of the joints. Resolution, the higher the resolution, the better the results. I'm going to go with 512. It just takes longer. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And then I'll hit bind skin. And I am going to wait. I think this will be okay. We'll see. Sometimes this can be slow. So you can see it down here at working. As long as this keeps moving, you're okay. But just be aware that Maya does try to keep running, even if it does appear to not be running. So we're gonna give it a good go here. Depending on the speed of your computer and what you have. I have an i3, so it's not great. I mean, at least it's an Intel processor, but some of them, you know, maybe faster. The schools will probably be considerably faster because they have Mac Pros and those are i7s, and you know, they got SSD and all that business. So, yay. Okay. So now what that's going to do is that literally now when you bend your joints, it will now bend your model. Okay? So now the joints now affect the model. Right? Which is pretty cool. So, and I know this probably doesn't look like good default, but trust me, if you ever done it before, you'll know that this is actually pretty awesome results from nothing, just applying some basic settings. This is actually really good. All right, this is even better than I anticipated. Okay, so that thing makes things a little bit easier. All right, now, you are gonna know some issues. So like if you look, you can see like this is kind of ripping the shoulder off a little bit. You see this again, it's ripping, it's affecting, you know, because the closest thing to this is just as close to this as this, right? This doesn't know to affect all this area because to it, it's pretty far off from it, all right? So, what we're going to do is this. We got to basically adjust the weights. Now, there's a couple ways of going about doing this. I'm going to make it so I can't select joints, just so I don't accidentally, this way I don't click on them. Makes things a little bit easier. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you how to paint weights real quick. So I'm going to right-click. I'm gonna, not a big fan of doing it that way. All right. Yeah, we'll right-click, go paint skin weights. All right. And the way this works is like this. If you look, the root affected it anyway. That should have no effect. Anyway, as you click the joints over here, you'll see that they highlight here. Now, what's white is what's being influenced. What's black means it has no influence on it. Okay? So what you can do is you can kind of use your arrow keys and scroll down and make sure that, you know, this looks good, right? So, you know, you can kind of see how these are getting affected, okay? And really, honestly, when I'm looking at these weights here, at least from what the initial was, it's not bad. This actually did a really nice job on the top here. But it might be able to be a little bit better, okay? So, let's click that. Okay. All right, so the fingers actually looked okay. I'm going to kind of let that go. I'm just kind of curious to see what the head is doing. Okay. All right, so in order to have, let's say, the arm not do as much, this is what you're going to want to do. So I'm actually going to cue on that. I'm going to just do I'm going to turn this back on so I can select joints. I'm just going to make a quick key, all right? Because that was just an obvious issue, was right here. So I'm gonna hit S, and then I'll just go some odd number. We'll just do 15. I don't really care. And I'm just gonna key it up like that. Okay. So it goes boom. That's great. And I'm also gonna do this. I'm gonna key that there, so it goes back, and then I'm gonna key it going forward. That's not really. Yeah, you know what? That's probably good enough. We'll just, So we'll just do the one. All right, so that way I can kind of see it as it's going. I could just scrub while I'm painting. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to painting here. Right click, paint skin weights tool. And I'm only gonna worry about the one side because we can actually just mirror it. Okay. So you can see this is affecting this down here. So I can't remove influence, meaning I can't paint the weight off. What I can do is I paint weight on. And when I add weight, it removes it from another place. Because the max weight that you can have on a single vert is 100%. So I'm going to, let me see, go right here. So in order to get this to not be affected by this, this arm and this as much, I'm going to add weight to this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one. That means that's 100%. There's no feathering on the brush. Skin weight, obviously, interact is finally. fine. Opacity, leave it 100. Value means what it's going to put on it. So if it's 100%, if it's 1, it's 100%, which means that this will only move. If I paint it here, this will only move with this, which is actually pretty close to what I want anyway. And I'm gonna go to add. So that means it's gonna add the weight on, not replace it. Okay, so I'm gonna make my value. I'm gonna go 0.75. That way it leaves a little bit for the other thing. Okay. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna click on replace. All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. And you'll see as soon as I do this all the way around, and I'll go ahead and put it on this one as well. All right. And then I'm actually going to, let's scroll down here. I'm going to go to the spine joint underneath. And I'm going to add a little bit of influence to that as well. So I'm going to take the influence here, and I'm going to go 0.25. All right, so like 25%. And I'm going to have that effect. I'm going to go up to the center line. I'm not going to worry about the other side because we're going to mirror these weights after. Okay? So I'm going to add a little influence there, and maybe even add a little bit up here too. All right. All right. And maybe I'll do 0.5 for this bottom row to give it even more. You know what? I'm going to do 0.75. 0.75. Okay. So that's how much influence it's going to have on this strip here. Okay. Good. All right. Good. So now you'll see when it goes up, it does stretch it a little bit, but it's not too bad. All right. Because now if I were to go onto the arm there, let's see if I can find it here. Okay, let's go. Here we go. You can see there is some influence. See how it's a really dark gray? I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's not 100%. Okay. Now, you can see on the top here, it's doing kind of the same thing as well. So what I would have to do again is I would just go to the spine here. Where are you? Where are you? Right here. So I'd go to the spine, this one, and I would paint more influence of this onto that. Okay. Now, another way to do this is to actually use numbers instead of manually painting it like this. Okay. Yeah. But we'll go do that in a second. The other thing I want to show you is this. You might notice it's a little bit harsh here. See how like it's not blended real well. I can also use smooth, and I can use the smooth, and I can kind of smooth out this. So if I click and I just go like this, you can see it's kind of smoothing that transition. Same thing here. See how it's kind of harsh? If I click on this and I go like this, it'll actually smooth the blending. So it adds a little bit or removes a little bit of it in order to make it blend better. Okay, so that's the smooth. Pretty much you're just going to use either replace or add. But you can use smooth for that as well. Okay, so the other way to do this is besides the weight painting is to actually just manually do it. So what I can do is I'm going to turn my joints off again, and I can be like, okay, I don't want this arm to affect this. So what I can do is I can select all the vertices of that chunk like this. Just I'm going to do it real rough like, okay? Okay, I'm going to say, okay, it should not affect any of those. All right, so we're going to say like that. And I'm going to, well, it doesn't really matter anyway. And I'm going to say I don't want to affect this upper part here too. So I'm going to grab all that, okay? So I'm just going to take that and we'll grab all these. Basically anything that's not that darker area, I'm going to say it shouldn't be influenced by. All right, then I'm going to go to Windows, General Editors, Component Editor. And then if you go to Smooth Skins, it'll give you all the values, each vertice right here, to each joint that it's affecting, okay? And then you can affect it that way. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually make another video of this so that you get a better idea. But we'll do that in a second. So I'm going to stop this video and then I'm going to start another video where we do it manually. Okay?